Recording started.
Thanks, Yasmin. And thanks everyone for joining us this afternoon for the final webinar in our 2020 Sustainability Series. We're going to be starting here officially now. And just as you heard, we will be recording this session, which is great because if your friends missed out on something or you missed something, you can always go back and check the recording later. The website to find those recordings is down at the bottom of your screen. A reminder that all attendees will be muted, but we would love to get questions from the audience. So there is a Q&A box. I believe it's at the bottom of your screen. Take a look. You can ask your questions there throughout our session, and we'll take questions after each speaker and then again at the end. So stay tuned for that, and you'll be able to ask questions, as many as you have. We'll go on to the next slide, please. So again, as I mentioned, oh, sorry, go back one, please. So yes, we have 9 webinars from our summer sustainability series, and I believe we have 4 webinars from our sustainable buildings webinar series that took place this fall. This webinar as well will be recorded, as I just mentioned, and this is where you can find it. But as of now, we have over a dozen recordings that you can check out from the last few months for all things sustainability. Next slide, please. And then just a reminder again that everyone's muted, and if you have any questions, to please go ahead and type those in the question box. We have a great topic today, so timely for this this week as we all head into the holidays, or we're in the thick of the holidays here. Our Sustainable Holidays webinar. A lot of great topics will be covered today. We have 3 amazing speakers. You can see them listed there on the right side. 2 from the Office of Sustainability here at the City of Chula Vista, and then a special guest star from the San Diego Food System Alliance. And we're gonna kick it right off with Sarah Fateh from the San Diego Food System Alliance. So take it away, Sarah.
Great. Thank you so much, Colleen. Hi, everyone. Really excited to be joining you all today for this webinar. Like Colleen mentioned, I work with the San Diego Food System Alliance as a program coordinator for our wasted food prevention program. So all I do is focused on food waste. So really excited to talk to you all today about how we can reduce food waste during the holidays. Next slide. So before we kind of get into the specific tips, we wanted to start with just talking about what's happening with food waste. What are we really referring to when we use the term food waste? Next slide. And what you'll see here on the slide is, quite literally what we call America's pie chart when it comes to food waste. And here in the United States, about 40% of all food actually ends up wasted or ends up in the trash, which is, pretty staggering statistic. And one way that we kind of like to explain this is, imagine yourself, out buying groceries for your holiday dinner at the grocery store. You're leaving the store with 5 full bags. And then on the way back to your car, you drop 2 of those bags in the parking lot, and then you just leave them there. That's essentially what we're doing, in our homes today when we're talking about 40% of food being wasted. Next slide. And if we kind of ask ourselves, well, where is this food waste coming from? If we take a food systems perspective, food waste actually is coming from, all levels of the food system, starting from production and manufacturing. But what you can see from this graphic really is that the greatest generators are very heavily skewed to the right-hand side. And at 43%, households are actually taking that #1 spot in terms of producing the most food waste. And when we say household, I'm talking about myself, I'm talking about all of us here. So we really have kind of a huge opportunity to make a difference on the issue of food waste. Next slide. So, the question here is, what can we all do, particularly this holiday season, to work on reducing that food waste? So, the image that you see here on your slide is actually a poster that was originally published in 1917. And as you can see, it's kind of outlining these 6 strategies for reducing food waste at home. And, we think that this is pretty cool because it shows that food waste isn't just a new hot topic that's, suddenly sparked interest, but that over 100 years ago, people were thinking about food waste and talking about what to do about it. So we were really inspired by this and kind of decided to reimagine, what food waste reduction strategies could look like today in 2020. And so what we've done is kind of come up with these 4 categories that you see listed on the right-hand side of your screen. And those are smart grocery shopping, zero waste cooking, meal planning, and then proper food storage. And what I'll be doing in this presentation is doing a deep dive into each one of these categories and talking about some specific easy tips that you can implement at home that can actually really make a big impact on helping to reduce food waste. Next slide. So we're going to start off with talking about smart grocery shopping. So before we even get to talking about our kitchens or what's happening there, food waste is actually really starting with what we're putting into our grocery carts. And, grocery stores are kind of designed in a way to tempt you in every aisle, right? The ultimate goal of the grocery store is to get you to buy more things so that they make more money. And I think especially around the holiday time, a lot of specialty items are pulled out and very visible. There's a lot of kind of holiday deals that are being promoted. And it makes it really tempting to buy things that maybe you weren't intending to buy when you first walked into the store. So a great tip to kind of prevent that kind of over purchasing is to just make sure that you have a shopping list so that you stay on track with only purchasing the items that you need. And your list can be as simple as something that you put together with paper and pen, or there are really cool apps out there that can let you create these kind of shared grocery lists with family members, and can just be a great way of putting all of your grocery needs in one place. Next slide. And kind of taking it a step further, from just making a grocery list is actually shopping with specific recipes in mind. That actually challenges you to kind of already have a plan for how you'll use the ingredients that you're purchasing, rather than just bringing them home and then sticking them in your fridge. So if you have some specific holiday meals that you've been wanting to try out, look at that recipe and write down the ingredients you might need from that before you go shopping at the grocery store. The next tip here is one I think everyone can appreciate, which is making sure that you actually eat before going grocery shopping. There was a study that found that people who go shopping on an empty stomach actually spend about 64% more than not hungry shoppers. So, I know a lot of times our eyes can be hungrier than our stomachs. So if you want to prevent something from sneaking into your cart, make sure that you eat a snack before you head out to the grocery store. The third one here is supporting imperfection. So you can see on the slide here, there's some pictures of, potatoes, lemons, carrots that look a little bit different. Nothing wrong with these items in terms of their quality or nutritional value, but a lot of times we associate the way that they look with them being bad. And these items often get wasted. So the next time you're at the grocery store and you see kind of an imperfect food or produce, give it a chance and you might find that it's actually, a lot better than you expected. And then the last tip here is around, understanding date labels. And there's a lot of confusion around date labels. And I think especially around, the holiday season and the end of the calendar year, being the end of 2020. What's really important to know with date labels is that they are not actually federally regulated. These are, dates that are developed by food manufacturers, and they signify, more than anything, food quality more than food safety. And because there's kind of this different wording on date labels that you might see, so some can say sell by, some boxes say, better if used by, best before. All of that just adds to the confusion as to what the label really means. And so what we like to recommend is, at the end of the day, use your judgment and your senses to determine if food has gone bad, rather than just relying on the printed date label. Next slide. Next slide, please.
I already proceed, but you don't see it.
I think there was a lag. I see it on my end.
Okay.
Thanks, Yasmin.
Yeah.
So the next category of tips we're going to talk about is zero waste cooking. So especially when, you're in a rush to prepare meals or you're, working in the kitchen on some holiday meals, food waste isn't always kind of what's top of mind, but there are a few kind of easy tips that you can incorporate to kind of help you become that zero waste chef. So next slide. And the first of these tips is what we like to call swapping this for that, or really what's referring to ingredient substitutions. So let's say you're following a recipe for holiday cookies and it calls for some milk and you realize you don't have any in your fridge. You actually probably have something else in your fridge or your pantry that would be a great substitute for that and maybe would have never gotten used otherwise. So using kind of an ingredient substitution can be a great food waste fighting strategy. The second tip here is repurposing leftovers. Usually we associate holiday meals with lots of leftovers. Even if your holiday meals or get-togethers are going to be a little bit smaller this year because of COVID, you might find yourself with leftovers. So, challenge yourself to turn them into a new meal instead of just tossing them out into the trash. So in the top right-hand corner of the screen, you can actually see this really great holiday sandwich that was put together with some, holiday meal leftovers. The next tip is actually one of my personal favorites, which is reviving limpy produce. So this is a really cool trick if you have carrots or lettuce or any kind of produce that's gone soft or wilted in your fridge. You don't give up on those items just yet. You can actually bring them back to life if you put them in some ice water and just leave them there for a little bit. So if you haven't tried that before, I really encourage you to check it out. And then the last tip here is saving, peels and scraps. A lot of food waste that comes from cooking comes from what we call trim waste. So things like fruits and vegetable peels and skins, meat bones. You can actually transform those things into kind of a delicious stock or broth that you make yourself at home. So those vegetable scraps into a veggie stock, or if you happen to have a whole roasted chicken or turkey during your holiday meal, you can actually save the carcass and the bones and use it to make your own broth as well. Next slide. So the next category of tips is meal planning. And really in the world of reducing food waste, we like to say that the freezer is your friend, especially when it comes to meal planning. About a third of household food waste is actually caused by people preparing too much food and then not eating it. So this is where meal planning comes in as kind of being this great strategy for fighting food waste. And using your freezer is a great kind of first step to doing that. So using it to store any fresh ingredients, almost like hitting the pause button on them so they don't just sit and go bad in your fridge. Or if you have lots of leftovers that you can, store in your freezer and pull out for like a quick weeknight meal. Next slide. So using the freezer is one, also using a portion size guide. This is really kind of important, especially now when we're thinking about potentially having these smaller holiday meals. We're might be worried about making too much food and not knowing what to do with it. Using kind of this portion size guide can help you right size your meals to make sure that you're making just enough for the people that you're enjoying the meal with without ending up with too much waste at the end. The third tip here is creating an Eat Me First section of your fridge. We really recommend creating this section. It's kind of like a box or a shelf where you put items that need to be used up first before they go bad. So you can kind of see it on the bottom of your screen here. It's a great almost visual cue. Every time you open your fridge, you see those food items and you know to pull from them as you're kind of planning your meals for the week instead of letting them just get forgotten about in the back of your fridge. And then lastly, just designate one night of the week as an eat the leftovers night. Now that we're all staying at home because of COVID, cooking every day can sometimes really be a challenge. So if meal planning is something new to you, you can, just mark one of the days of the week as this is the leftovers day and then pull out anything from your fridge and freezer to make sure that they get used. Next slide. And then the last category of tips is about proper food storage. This is really one of the best ways to fight food waste, is to store your food correctly. So, this is helpful in a lot of ways. First, because of COVID, we're all probably trying to limit our trips to the grocery store right now. So storing our food properly will help, keep it fresh and last longer. So we don't have to keep going back to the grocery store for things. And, a lot of times the way that we purchase things or the way that we bring them back from the store isn't always the best way to store it. So we'll take the example of the cilantro that you see here on the slide. Usually if you're bringing it back from the grocery store, you'll bring it back in those single-use plastic bags. But the best way to store cilantro or any kind of leafy herb is actually to put it in a jar or a cup with a little bit of water on the bottom, almost the same way that you would put flowers in a jar, in a vase. And if you put that on the top shelf of your fridge, you'll find that those, your cilantro, your herbs will last a lot longer. So on the next slide, we're going to also go through the best ways to store some other kind of food, food items that you might commonly have in your fridge. So next slide, please.
I did, but I think there's a lag going on.
All right. Sorry, Yasmin.
No, it's okay.
I'll wait for it. There it is on my side. So like we said, the cilantro in the jar with a little bit of water. The next is strawberries or kind of any other berries. Usually they'll come really tightly packed in, plastic containers. But the best way to store strawberries is actually to take them out and lay them in layers between paper towels. Really helps absorb moisture that may accumulate on them so that they don't develop mold in your fridge. With whole wheat grains and nuts, those are actually best stored in the freezer, particularly with nuts because they have a high fat content. And if you buy them in bulk and you leave them out, they do tend to go bad if they're left out for too long. So if you want to ensure that they stay fresh, make sure that you put your nuts in the freezer. And then with apples, those are actually best stored in the fridge because they actually can ripen up to 10 times faster if they're left at room temperature. So if you have a lot of apples and you're not planning on eating them, relatively soon, putting them in the fridge is the best option. If you have extra butter, I know holiday time, there's a lot of baking that goes on and you might have a little bit of butter left over. That actually can be stored very well in the freezer. And then the last one here is milk. And this is one of my personal favorites because I used to do this, but a lot of times we put milk in the door of our fridge, because we use it a lot for breakfast or for some of our cooking, or it just kind of fits really perfectly in the spot there. But the fridge is actually the warmest part of the refrigerator. And so if you put something like milk or anything that's highly perishable, it could make your milk spoil, quickly. So if you want to extend the life of your milk or any other kind of dairy products or perishables, make sure that you're putting them in the main compartment of your fridge and not the door. Next slide. So the tips that I kind of just shared with you all are part of our Save the Food San Diego campaign, which really focuses on educating residents in San Diego about how they can reduce food waste at home. So, if any of the tips that I shared today stood out to you or you'd like to learn more, I highly recommend that you all visit our website, which is listed on the bottom of the slide here, where you can find a lot of great tips. And then we have some really cool downloadable resources as well. So I hope that, maybe a few of the tips that I shared here today stood out to you, and that you feel encouraged or motivated to try some of them out in your own homes. And I really just want to emphasize that small changes to our daily habits really can make a big difference in reducing food waste. So this, as I kind of wrap up, I really invite you all to kind of become food waste warriors this holiday season. Next slide. And with that, I'll go ahead and wrap up my portion and pass it back to Colleen.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Such great information. And I know I just learned something new, so that's always good. We have one question. Oh, I think we may have two questions now. Send your questions in, folks. We have two questions. The first one is they're wondering about storage of tomatoes, potatoes, and onions. Should we store those in the fridge or the cupboard?
Great question. So with tomatoes, they can actually do, fine if you leave them out at room temperature, on the counter. But if you happen to have a lot of them, or you're not going to be using them up pretty immediately, they can also go fine in the fridge. Potatoes and onions, on the other hand, it's best to kind of store those in like a cool, dark place. So usually this is like a cupboard or a pantry. The important thing though is that you don't put your onions and your potatoes together, because they can cause each other to kind of like sprout, and they'll get like ripe really quickly. So make sure that you're not putting your potatoes and onions in the same like basket or container, but they can generally go inside a cupboard or a pantry.
Excellent. And this is slightly different. Should fruits and vegetables be stored separately in the fridge?
That's a great question. I would say it depends on the fruits and vegetables. So one of the resources, and actually was just mentioning this before we jumped on the call, one of the resources we have on our website is called the Fridge Demystified Guide. So it's kind of a guide to analyzing, what parts of my freezer have different temperatures, where should I put certain food items. So some fruits and vegetables need to be placed in your humidity drawers. For some people, they may have never known that the drawers at the bottom of your fridge actually have settings on it to control the humidity and moisture that can accumulate there. So for some things, they'll need to go in those drawers. And for others, they'll do fine just on like the main shelves, in the main compartment of your fridge. So it really depends on what they are. So I'd highly encourage you to check out that resource on our website. We also have it in like a handy dandy fridge magnet sized guide if you want to check that out as well.
Excellent. That's all the questions we have for now, but as a reminder to our participants, you can type them in at any time. We'll be taking questions throughout our webinar today. So I think with that, we'll pass it over to Marty Solomon from our environmental services team here at the City of Chula Vista. Take it away, Marty.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Even though it's the holiday season, we still can reduce, reuse, and recycle and head down the road to zero waste. So what I want to do today is kind of review the basics of recycling, give you some ideas of what to do with those hard to get rid of holiday tips, and then give you a little, well, going back to Sarah's presentation, a little bit of food for thought as far as what you can do to make your holidays more zero waste than perhaps they've been in years past. Next slide, please. These items here, we all know that they're recyclable. You have your cardboard, you have your cartons, you have your water bottles, soda cans, and this holiday season, of course, you've got cards, paper cards, as long as they're plain paper, they're recyclable. Gift bags are recyclable. And then, of course, glass bottles and jars are as well. Next slide, please. Now, these are some don'ts. A couple things you'll be getting this holiday season. You may get tissue paper. That sadly is not recyclable. Bubble wrap is not recyclable. The beautiful bows that and ribbons that we have on our holiday packages are not recyclable. Christmas tree lights do not go in your recycling container. Then, of course, you've got the bubble wrap and air pillows. They do not belong in your recycling container. Plastics bags, still a big no-no in the recycling container. And then last but not least, styrofoam this time of year. We see a lot of it. You've got your packing peanuts, you've got your plates, cups, dishes, that kind of thing. And then, of course, with COVID, we all have more takeout containers than perhaps we normally do, and those are not recyclable either. Next slide, please. Holiday trees. They're beautiful, they're lovely, but then how do you get rid of them? Well, first of all, I just want to tell you real quickly how to prepare your tree. First of all, you want to make sure that you remove all ornaments, tinsel, and garland, and of course, your plastic or metal stands. When possible, you need to cut the tree into 4-foot sections. And to remember that plastic or flocked trees are not recyclable. They have to be disposed of as trash. And the fire department wants us to pass on a couple safety tips to keep in mind this time of year. Keep your trees away from heat registers, ducts, and fireplaces. Make sure your tree has plenty of water, whether you have it in a stand, a bucket of sand. Don't let the tree get dry. And to be safe rather than sorry, make sure you unplug your Christmas tree lights when you're not at home and before you go to bed. And in case the unforeseen happens, it is highly suggested that you have a charged fire extinguisher readily available. And as beautiful as they are, don't keep them around your house longer than you have to. Recycle or dispose of your tree as soon as possible. And the final tip is be careful not to overload your electrical outlets with lights and decorations. Now, you may be wondering, okay, how do I get rid of my tree? If you live in a single family home and have curbside collection, so curbside collection would be for dwellings of 4 units and you would have cart service, you can actually prepare your tree, as I have said, and put it on the curb on your collection day. Apartments, condominiums, HOA residents that have a central collection area or dumpster service, your trees will be picked up from a designated collection point at your complex. And you would go and find out from your apartment manager or your HOA board member where that designated place is. If anybody on the call is actually an apartment manager or board member and you're not sure what your designated day is, you can contact Republic Services at 619-421-9400, and they will be happy to let you know when your collection day is. Next slide, please. Now, how many of you deep fry your turkeys? Oh my God, they taste so wonderful. But cooking oil, another, what do I do with it? Hard to dispose of. What you do not want to do with cooking oil is you don't want to pour it down the drain. You don't want to pour it down the sink, and you certainly don't want to pour it down the toilet. The main reason for this is that it will solidify and eventually cause wastewater backups, and that is some very, very costly repairs. If you live in a single family home with curbside service, you can put your cooking oil in a bottle or container with a watertight lid, call Republic Services, and then have them schedule a pickup for you at the curb. If you do not live in a single family home and you have the central collection type service, you can take it to our household hazardous waste facility that is located at 1800 Maxwell Road. We are open Wednesdays and Saturdays, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m., and no appointment is necessary. Next slide, please. Batteries, electronic devices, we get tons of them at the holidays. The main problem with putting batteries in your recycling container is that they can create a fire hazard at the recycling facility. They also contaminate the recyclables because they have to be pulled out, and it makes the process longer, and it winds up being more costly, and sometimes they can actually wind up at the landfill. The best solution that we offer Chula Vista residents is, again, our household hazardous waste facility on Maxwell Road. Take them there Wednesdays and Saturdays 9 to 1, and that is, they can just properly handle them for you at the facility. Next slide, please. Now, the best idea is to take the guesswork out of it. Reduce what you generate, reuse, or work to getting to zero waste. Now, going from left to right on the slide, you would look at gift boxes and you would think, well, they're cardboard, they're recyclable. Yes, they are, but it's much better to have a gift bag instead of a box, because yes, the box can be recycled, but typically we don't save boxes for presents from year to year. We recycle them. Whereas gift bags, we're going to reuse them multiple times. Now, going one step further and actually heading to zero waste, you have your holiday cards. They're very beautiful and they're pretty, and we love opening our mailbox and getting holiday cards from the relatives. But to have no waste at all, totally zero waste, why not send an e-card? There are some tremendous e-cards out there. You get to really personalize it and put your own message in there, and then there's nothing to worry about. Do I recycle it? Do I trash it? Because all you're doing is it's right on your computer. You don't have to worry about it. We all know that water bottles are recyclable. However, instead of using water bottles, why not use a reusable bottle? That way, there's nothing to decide recyclable or trash. There's nothing to do except refill your bottle. The same with plastic bags, one of the biggest culprits. Don't use the plastic bags. Take reusable bags everywhere you go. And that way, again, you get multiple uses out of it. And there's less items either going to the landfill or to the recycling center. Next slide, please. I hope I've given you some tips and some things to think about. If you have any other questions, feel free to contact me. And also, please visit the city's website at chulavistaca.gov/clean for more recycling tips. Thank you very much. Colleen, I'm turning it back to you.
Excellent. Thanks, Marty. We have a couple questions for you I think we can take now. There's a question from John. He says, what about holiday gift wrapping paper? What if it has tape on it? So I guess with and without tape.
Well, as far as holiday paper goes, I know some of the wrapping paper is foiled. That definitely, foil paper, unfortunately, cannot be recycled. If it has tape on it and you really want to be a diehard recycler, what I do is the part that has the tape on it, I will actually try to tear the tape off and put it in the trash. And then if it's just plain holiday paper, then that can be recycled. I do the same thing with cardboard boxes as well. I'll tear the tape off and throw it away and then just have the pure cardboard box to recycle.
Excellent. Great tip. Here's another question. Can we recycle paper cartons that maybe had chicken broth or almond milk, those kinds of cartons?
Typically, if they had any kind of liquid in them, they're going to be wax coated. Otherwise, the liquid wouldn't hold. So unfortunately, those would indeed need to be disposed of in your trash.
Okay, and another quick question on this topic. What about to-go plastic cups, lids, and straws? Let's say I went to my local coffee shop, I got an iced coffee, it's got, which I wouldn't do, but let's say it happened. I had a plastic cup, a plastic lid, and a straw. Are those items recyclable?
It depends on the recycling facility that the materials are going to. The one that we take ours to in Chula Vista at the moment, they are taking some of those items, so it would be okay to put them in the recycling container.
Oh, interesting. Even straws?
Well, straws you wouldn't so much, but as far as the plastic cups and lids, those are a big question because it depends on, because some of the cups are tinted, some aren't, and those are factors that really do make a difference. But straws you would not want to recycle.
Okay, great. Again, a reminder, if folks have other questions, please type them in. We can get to them after our next speaker. But thank you, Marty. We will pass it over to Corey Downs from our conservation team here at the City of Chula Vista to talk about another topic. So take it away, Corey. Sorry to interrupt. I don't know if it's just me, but I can't hear Corey, but it might just be me.
Oh, hello. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Sorry about that. So thank you very much for joining us today. I'll be talking a little bit about how we're spending and using energy in our house, providing some tips for an efficient, comfortable, and healthy holiday at home. Next slide. Thank you very much. I don't think we need a big map to show us this, but it is important to notice that looking at how we're spending time around our communities and in our home, here in San Diego County and across the nation, we're really spending a lot more time at home with COVID restrictions and stay-at-home orders. Looking at a high in April of up to 50% of our time spent in home, and this only goes up to September, so it could have been more. But I think we all know that we're spending a lot more time at home, and we want to find ways that we can maximize that time and make sure that we're staying healthy while we're at home. Next slide. Perfect. So the three main really key elements for our time spent at home. Next slide. We want to make sure that our homes are healthy, that we're not getting sick by spending time there. We want to make sure that they're comfortable. That's why we have homes. And we want to make sure that they're efficient, that we're not wasting resources or creating too much pollution. When we bring all three of those together, that's when we really get quality time at home and the most benefits out of our home. Next slide. So one way to start with that is looking at holiday decorations. I think it's a great opportunity to show some holiday spirit and bring a little bit of cheer to neighbors and anyone that might be coming by your home. Traditionally, this can be done through a lot of holiday lights. LED lights are very popular right now. They use a lot less energy than the older incandescent lights. If anyone has any of the old kind of the bulb strands where each bulb screws in, each of those bulbs uses about as much energy as 100 feet of LED light bulbs. So it's definitely a great time to upgrade. You don't only get a brighter and kind of a clearer light, but it also, again, uses much less energy. There's also projection technology where you can use one LED light to kind of project images or some effects across your home and really bring down the amount of energy that you're using. And then also be aware of when we're using these energy. Try to minimize time during the peak demand period from 4 to 9, maybe turn it on a little bit later in the evening to help our grid provide that, and then make sure that it's not staying on too late and that we're not, again, wasting resources and unnecessarily creating pollution. Another great alternative is looking at natural alternatives. So there could be some rosemary Christmas trees, wreaths or succulent plants in a design that really utilize natural resources without creating pollution or using energy to provide same holiday cheer with less pollution. Next, and less bills for everybody. Next slide. Now kind of looking from more of the outside in the home going inwards, I think it's really important to talk about insulation and air sealing. This is something that in a lot of homes can be out of sight, out of mind. It's often up in the attic, down below, in walls, and it's something that you not always think of, but it can really provide a lot of comfort as well as utility bill reductions for heaters or air conditioners that don't have to work as hard. Because these improvements are often in awkward or hard to reach places, it's really important to take advantage of other work that might be done in similar areas. If you're having some work done in the attic, you can take a look and see how much insulation you have. On the image here shows about 14 inches of insulation that's required in a new home. You can see how much insulation you have and if you need to add some more to that. Additionally, up to about 30% of homes' conditioned air can be lost through air leaks in a home. This is through all the different holes that we have for lighting, attic hatch, all the different other industrial components of our home. And that means that the air that you're paying to heat can escape a lot easier. And so it's important to seal that up, especially if you're doing other work in that area. There are some low-income assistance programs that can help and make these improvements for low-income households. SDG&E has a number of assistance programs, such as their Energy Savings Assistance Program, and MAC also has some weatherization programs that you can learn about on the website or by calling MAC, and they can provide improvements at no cost to low-income households. So it's a really great service that reduces the bill and makes homes more comfortable and healthy. Next slide. Kind of continuing to look more inward at the home. Once you have a properly sealed home and you have nice insulation, you're also going to want to be aware of what you're doing within that indoor airspace. So if you don't have proper air sealing and you do have a fan, or if there are ways where air is going in between inside and outside, that can bring some outdoor air pollutants inside. So especially if there's outside air pollution sources that you want to try to get away from, or say a wildfire that's outside, that's where it's really important to have a nicely sealed home that is properly airtight or sealed tight, and prevents that outdoor air from coming in unnecessarily or unfiltered. But also, once we're in our home, there's a lot of activities that we do within our homes. So there are a number of combustion appliances that are in average homes, and the graph here shows that there's actually a lot more of some pollution that comes from home and commercial buildings rather than the traditional power plants that we think of. A lot of the power plants have really advanced emission control technology to get that pollution out of the air, but on the many smaller sources around homes and offices, we don't have as many of those technologies, and so it's really important to think about how we can make a lot of smaller changes, as we saw with food waste or recycling waste, but make those smaller changes that add up to the big changes that we're looking for. And I'll have some opportunities to do that ahead. Next slide. So again, looking at where combustion appliances operate in your home is really important. This study by the Rocky Mountain Institute found that home gas stoves can emit higher indoor levels of nitrogen dioxide than outside standards. This can be especially bad if there is not maybe an older home and there's not a range or exhaust hood hooked up, or not as good ventilation in the kitchen area. And so all of those factors can kind of add up and really have air quality that you can't see but can affect your health. Next slide. Some of the ways to remove some of the combustion appliances, especially from around the kitchen, are simple things, utilizing tools that you may already have more, whether that's an electric slow cooker, a rice cooker. There's also induction stoves that are coming onto the market that are much more energy efficient than older electric resistant stove. Much more safe to the touch and less opportunity to burn yourself while creating no emissions. So there's some really good opportunities, and some of these can also be leveraged to reduce peak demand time. So typically, from 4 to 9 is when a lot of people will be making food for dinner. But some of these opportunities, you can set them and kind of use them throughout the day when we're better able to utilize solar energy. Another opportunity for heating is utilizing electric radiators if you have natural gas combustion wall units or some other units like that. Next slide. And finally, then there's also some kind of suggestions for if you want ways to increase the air quality in your home. The first is because a lot of these alternatives do use electricity, it's a great opportunity to see if utilizing solar energy on your home is a good way to create that clean energy that you're using and offset your utility bills. There is a low-income assistance program from Grid Alternatives that works to provide low-income residents of San Diego County low-cost or no-cost solar systems, which can then really open the door for some of these electrical carbon-free technologies. There's also some other improvements that you can make to your home. You can add filtered air exchanges to bring more fresh air filtered into your home from the outside in and improve that ventilation, or change how your filters and upgrading your filters of your existing HVAC unit here. We show going from a MERV 12 to a MERV 13 and changing the angle so you get kind of more opportunity to use the whole filter instead of just parts of it with that tight turn down there. So these are some kind of smaller improvements that you can make around your home if you're not able to do large-scale installation or airsealing of devices or new devices. Next slide. And then finally, if you'd like to learn more about ways that you can save energy around your home, the Chula Vista Library is now checking out home energy sustainability kits. They're toolkits that contain tools and supplies that help you make energy and water saving improvements around your home. They have things such as an infrared camera. So a lot of times, again, the insulation that's missing is out of sight, out of mind. Not very many people go up into the back corners of their attic. I don't blame them. But using an infrared camera, you can see in an image here is a Chula Vista home where some insulation maybe got pulled back and not put in or compromised and moved. But this is during the summer months, and you can definitely see there's some heat coming in from that area. And so, it can be a relatively simple fix to go up and fix that. You want to make sure that you're not putting insulation over something that cannot be insulated. So you do, if there's electrical components or some other devices, you want to make sure you check with a building professional, make sure that it's your home is safe. But the toolkits in the library can definitely help get you started on that path. There's also a gas detector to see if any of your combustion appliances are leaking. And then other tools and supplies that you can keep, such as weather stripping or LED light bulbs that help you, put these solutions into place, and you can keep those at no cost. There's an instructional guidebook that helps you walk through step by step how to use the tools and maximize their worth. And then also the items are quarantined when they are returned. Just like all of the library books that are being returned right now, they want to take safety very seriously. And so the toolboxes are quarantined when they are returned to make sure that they're safe. If you'd like to learn more, you can check out the website down below. Next slide. And here's a picture of what the toolkit looks like. So again, it has the user guide that's really helpful, but then all these tools that really help you learn more about how your home's using energy and how you can save and reduce your utility bill. Next slide. And finally, I just want to provide an opportunity to learn more if you're interested in any of these energy saving tips today. You can go to the Chula Vista Climate Action Challenge website, where there's information about all of these actions and a lot more. If you haven't created an account, it's a great opportunity. You can take a quick survey to find your own household carbon footprint, which really then helps, again, point you in the right direction for how do you save energy, reduce pollution, reduce carbon emissions, and help make Chula Vista more sustainable. So thank you very much, and look forward to any questions.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Corey. I believe we have one question here. And again, a reminder, if there's other folks with questions online, please go ahead and type them into our Q&A box. Our first question comes from Bob, and he's wondering if new carpeting has an impact on indoor air quality.
Yes, well, it depends on the carpet that you do purchase. There can be some carpets with low, typically what's referred to as VOCs or volatile organic compounds, I believe. And so that is something that you want to make sure anytime you're bringing new furniture or carpeting or painting large areas where there'll be large applications of chemicals for glue or paint. You want to make sure that you're ventilating properly, and especially a lot of the products will come with instructions, and you want to make sure to read those and take them very seriously, and make sure that there's proper ventilation. I can say personally in my home, not new carpet, but we just have a natural gas stove, and we've been trying to keep the window open because we don't have a range hood. Keep the window open no matter how cold it is outside. So there's been some interesting times walking through the kitchen with a nice blast of very cold air, but it is important to have that ventilation for combustion appliances or other chemical products.
Great. And we have a couple questions from John. all about fireplaces. He says lots of people use fireplaces frequently this time of year. How bad are fireplaces for the environment? How about for indoor air quality? And then what about gas burning fireplaces versus wood burning fireplaces?
So again, there is a wide variety of difference between fireplaces, but in general, anytime you have combustion in your home, it's going to negatively impact the air quality, and so depending on depending on your home's ventilation, there could be opportunities to utilize some wood burning stoves or and fireplaces. But in general, you want to try to minimize that combustion to increase the air quality. There are electrical kind of inserts that you can put in a fireplace to help provide that heat and some of the look from that. Or there also is natural gas, some of the burners that you mentioned. Those are going to be cleaner if they have a kind of controlled burn versus just an open fire. But any opportunities to control the emissions or the smoke from the fire, get it out of the house as quick as possible will improve air quality.
Excellent. A couple more questions here. And as a reminder, you can ask questions for any of our speakers. But our next question is, I think, for you as well, Corey. Is it safe to use a timer for your Christmas tree, or should we just unplug it?
If there's a timer to turn off the lights for the Christmas tree, that should be perfectly safe as long as it's set properly and it goes off. I think just unplugging it is a perfectly great solution. But if you have a timer and it's set properly, that should be fine as well. One other quick thing I wanted to mention about fireplaces are you see them much more in existing older homes. Because what we've seen is that as you put more homes into a community, if they all rely on wood burning stove, it can really have a negative impact on local air quality at the community level. And so, it's also important to keep that in mind to make sure that you're using, wood burning stoves in the right densities and the right location to where you're not going to be, negatively impacting community air quality.
Okay, great. It looks like we have one more from Alex. Are there programs that will help upgrade the furnace to a new central HVAC system?
So SDG&E has some good program. There's no kind of rebates right now for furnaces, but there are some really great tools that SDG&E has created, the SDG&E Marketplace. And you can learn more and find a link to that on the Chula Vista Climate Action under the furnace-related actions. But what it does is allows you to kind of compare the energy efficiency of different devices online and kind of a target or an online shopping experience with energy efficiency as a key resource. So they're ranked by the most efficient products. You can see the negatives and the drawbacks to each product and check prices around town. So that was definitely something I'd recommend. And then if you are a low-income household, there can be some of those low-income assistance program that provides upgrades to furnaces as well.
Okay, that's the last question I have now. I'll give folks another minute here to type in any final questions they have. As a reminder, there's contact info for all of our speakers. So if you have something that maybe comes up later that you were thinking of reaching out to someone about, feel free to jot these down, or even better, take a photo of this page so that you can get in touch with our speakers. Looks like that's all the questions for. Oh,
actually, yeah. I did have one quick other resource I realized, kind of related to the question about furnace rebates or pro incentives for replacing furnaces. There's not rebates for furnaces, but there is a $500 rebate for replacing water heaters. So again, the water heater can be a common indoor combustion appliance, and there's up to $500 for purchasing new electric heat pump water heaters, which use similar technology as a refrigerator. So they don't create the energy, they just kind of move it around from the outside air. And that's a much more efficient process and can really help bring down some cost. And there is a $500 SDG&E rebate for that. You can find out about that at sdgne.com/rebates.
Oh, and with that, we got one final question. Oh, yep, one final question from John. He's wondering if there's any incentives to switch out a gas stove in the kitchen with an efficient electric stove.
There is no incentives for that right now. I think most of the utilities will be looking much more at the space heating and the water heating. But I do think that there are some local efforts to support looking at fuel switching in the kitchen. I'm not sure of the status, but I know the San Diego Green Building Council was actually looking at providing a kind of an electric induction kit that residents can try to test out some of the new technology before they, spend and purchase it for their home. And so there could be some other sources like that. But I think it's a great idea, and hopefully there'll be some programs that are looking at creating or removing some of these combustion appliances more broadly.
Okay, well, I think that's it. Again, if you have any questions that didn't get answered here, you can reach out to our speakers. And then just a reminder if you need to see this again, or you wanted to check out any of our previous webinars from our summer sustainability series or our sustainable buildings series, you can see them here at our website. And I just wanted to say thank you again to all of our speakers, Sarah, Marty, and Corey, and to all of you for joining us today. Happy holidays, and hopefully they're sustainable holidays. Thanks again, and we'll be back next year with more webinars in our sustainability series. Have a great night.